The questing in Warlords of Draenor is probably one of the single biggest leaps that Blizzard have made. It's interesting, it's fun, and it's really damn engaging. In this video, I'm going to give my top 10 reasons why I think this is the case. Now, I've basically done I have done every zone. I've been beta testing for, since the alpha, so I've been alpha testing on top of that, and it has been an absolute blast. So yeah, sit back, neglect any important responsibilities for the next 20 whatever minutes, and I hope you enjoy the video. Number 10. They actually stick to World of Warcraft's main mechanics. You know, sometimes I think Blizzard have in the past got a little bit too carried away with the idea of gimmick quests. Things like turret sections, random yak riding, kicking vegetables with Mushans, jumping around in helicopters, and Harrison Jonesing yourself around the place. Really, it's a bit annoying. I mean, these are fine sometimes, yes, but what they actually do is they break up the tension of the gameplay. And especially when they are used to the degree that Blizzard have sometimes used them, it just really kills the flow of a zone. And yeah, it's also really annoying just having your action bars disappear and then having the game force you to learn a whole new set of abilities for the sake of a single quest, and then you'll never need to use them again. It's a bit like that problem in Assassin's Creed 3 where the entire game was a giant tutorial because they just threw mechanics at you that you never needed again, other than the, regular crappy old combat. Anyway, so this is a thing that I really don't like in games. I really didn't like it in World of Warcraft, and hurrah, they finally decided to scale down a bit and mainly just get us to kill stuff. I know it seems a little bit strange that number 10 on a list of best things is the lack of a bad thing, but I mean, hey, it does result in the questing being a hell of a lot more fun. For me, anyway. I mean, you might hate it, but I like it, so there. Number 9, it is short and it is sweet, but we're not really going to talk about the sweet now. This point is mainly about the shortness. So you level really, really quickly in Warlords of Draenor. Now, I think they might make it a bit slower than it currently is in the beta, but Blizzard have been talking a lot about how they want Warlords of Draenor questing to feel really fast and how they want players to feel like they are moving from zone to zone at a really fast pace. The good news is that they have actually done this. They have won. Congratulations, Blizzard. I think they really did learn a lesson from the Miss Pandaria leveling, which really just felt like sludge, especially 84 to 85 stuck in the Dread Wastes, literally wanting to just shut your computer off and beat your head in with a bloody candlestick or something. That's probably not the most efficient way to beat your head in, but anyway, it was not fun, that's the key. What they've actually managed to do here is make it so that you are moving from zone to zone in a fashion that means you're always seeing something new, cool, and shiny, and you really feel like you are progressing. Also, because there are 10 levels, well, you're dinging more, you're dinging more per second. Okay, you need twice as many dings to get your big dong at the end, but the good news is, it's nice and fast, and it feels great. So overall, I think that it's quite good how it is. However, it could do, with being a little bit more slow. I just hope they don't go and, double the XP requirement like they did in Miss Pandaria. That would be a really big mistake. We're also at a stage in the game where a lot of people have a lot of alts, and it's okay that the leveling pace is actually more alt-friendly. So hurrah for short questing, I suppose. Number 8, bonus objectives. So bonus objectives are basically Renown Hearts from Guild Wars 2, just instead of getting a bar that you have to fill up and having it so that any action with an area fills up that bar, bonus objectives in Warcraft are still the traditional kill X mobs, collect Y items, and, do a backflip or whatever. Basically, it's the regular kind of questing, just instead of getting a quest, you walk into a zone, and a little bonus objective pops up in the little objective majiggery thingy-mabob on the right of your screen, and you go and you do it, and it's good, I suppose. Now, generally, one bonus objective would replace what previously would have been a whole bunch of little random quests, and I suppose people could argue that the bonus objectives are less content, and they're also easier for Blizzard to make. You know what? That's probably true, but what matters more is the gameplay truth, and these bonus objectives actually do work really well. They're optional and can be done instead of the regular questing, which feels great and adds to that sense of player agency. Now, also in the past, zones would feel padded out by having lots of crappy quests that people didn't care about. This just ruined the flow of various things. Now those crap quests are just bonus objectives. Okay, a bonus objective is not an amazing amount of fun, but you can do it at your own prerogative, which is great. It's a bit of freeform gameplay, I suppose. Now this means that also, every single quest in a zone will tie into some sort of cool story, because you know what Blizzard have done? They've cut the crap. And I like less crap in my questing experience, so hurrah for that. Yeah, look, just another one of those great things that Blizzard are pulling off for the questing experience. Number 7, the ease of access has really been ramped up, and this is a good thing. So it's really important that quest hubs are accessible and that it's really easy to get around the place within the world. The good news is that flight points within zones are fantastic. Sometimes flight points between zones can be, well, I don't even know if there's a metaphor to describe how bloody retarded they can be, but Blizzard have said that they're actually going to be fixing these on a case-by-case basis, so hopefully that won't be a problem by the time Warlords actually comes out. Just that us beta testers are literally going to have to bleed our bloody eyes out to find the bugs, but hey, that's what we signed up for, and it's actually kind of fun. So every single quest has got a flight point. That's a good thing, and I suppose really most expansions have had that. But for whatever reason, the distribution of things in Warlords feels great. It's really easy to get around within a zone, and I have found zone traversal on the ground to be better than it has been in any of the prior expansions. With Blizzard implementing the no-fly zone until patch 6.1, and Memories of the Dread Wastes painfully burned into the people's minds and maybe the back of their eyes and various other horrible places, I think there's a lot of concern about getting around the place in Warlords of Draenor, and I'm very happy to tell you that that is not the issue, so just keep on going to your therapists about the Dread Wastes, and yeah, look, the best thing we can do about the Dread Wastes is hope that the MOP, like XP, will be nerfed so much that you never actually get there before you can move on, because right now all Dread Wastes seems to do is sell the level 90 boost. I'm gonna be honest, I have level 90 boosted simply so that I did not have to do Pandaland again. Number 6, you're always fighting with lore characters and there is a consistent and small cast that's really interesting. So one of the great things in the Warlords of Draenor questing is you constantly have a buddy to help you out, and these come in the form of the cast for your faction. So for the Alliance, you've got Vindicator Murad, you've got Yril, you've got a few other people like that, and for the Horde, I'm sure you've got someone who's cool. Now, this is great from a storytelling perspective because you kind of start picking up the story passively because, of course, as you run around with all these NPCs, they just say their random speech, you know, as you're walking from place A to B. That's a really cool way of telling the story without just burying it under mountains of text that requires you to just stand still and read a thing. Now, you can just sort of passively absorb things in as you go. That's a really cool thing. Now, another great thing as well is that, at least in the Alliance side, the characters are really good, and so are their quests. Then, of course, another nice thing about this is that since characters are going to be with you for level 90 to 100, assuming they make it all the way, well, there's a bit of a sort of plot arc, you know, that goes on there. Like, every character's got their own personal story progress and character progression going on, and that adds a bit more heart to the story. I think this is especially the case with, I don't know, say, Yril for the Alliance. I just hope that when Blizzard said that Yril is a Joan of Arc style character, that she's not just going to get randomly burnt at the stake halfway through. I can imagine it. Gul'dan just pops up halfway through the feckin' quest and goes, "Ah, no one expects the Shadow Council Inquisition," and then he burns her, and everyone's sad in this forum rage, and blah. Nah, don't kill Yril off quickly, Blizz. And one thing, by the way, this is just not no spoilers or anything here, not to do with any particular character, but there's stuff that goes on with characters that's actually pretty cool, and I'm sure many of you will know the spoilers, and by the way, if you don't want to know the spoilers, do not look in the comments, it'd be a terrible idea. Anyway, so overall, it does also just feel like you are not their minion, so the whole green Jesus problem of Cataclysm is completely avoided in this case. Number 5, there's a more intelligent quest flow. So the quest flow is actually really great in Warlords of Draenor. It's really easy to work out what the main quest is, and all that you really have to do in a zone is follow the main quest. Everything else is basically optional. Now, of course, you will know what a main quest is because it will involve the characters that you've been gallivanting around the place with, but also Blizzard are going to be adding little quest marker thingies onto the map to denote anything that you are eligible for but have not picked up. So that's really nice, and overall, I just think this quest flow thing is really good. In combination with all the bonus objectives that are going on, you feel like you've got a really clear path to progress and a lot of options outside of that path. So if you don't feel like doing a quest with, I don't know, Yril, then you can run around and do a few bonus objectives and things like that. It's really pretty cool. Another nice thing is that while you do move from hub to hub quite a bit, maybe sort of similar to how things were in Cataclysm, the difference is that unlike Cataclysm, there's a decent bit of choice outside moving from hub to hub really quickly in the main story, and it's totally awesome that they've decided to do that, because While hyperlinearity can help the storytelling, but it can also hinder the gameplay, they've just found a really great balance between everything that should work out pretty damn well. Number 4. It's really pretty. I mean, Draenor, it's pretty. It's so nice. So, it's really easy to quantify this, essentially for me anyway. The zones in this expansion are astoundingly well made, and they are an absolute cut above what we got in Mists of Pandaria and Cataclysm. The Howling Fjord and perhaps one or two other Northrend zones are, in my mind, of nearly equal quality, but I think that most people are going to find the Draenor stuff to be an absolute cut above the rest, and that's fair enough because it's really pretty damn awesome. Yes, so the art direction is really strong this time round, and every single zone is radically different. In Mop, we had a bright green forest, we had 2 dark green forests, we had whatever the fuck the Dread Waste was, then we had a brown field with a mountain on it that was just kinda, dull but pretty in a few cases, and then we had a big green field with some plants in it that I suppose was nice because of the scale. But essentially, it was pretty drab, and a lot of the zones were really washed out. Even the Vale of Eternal Blossoms had a washed out colour palette that made me a little bit sleepy. And then of course Cataclysm may in a few cases have just been hampered by the fact that it had to fit in with the vanilla World of Warcraft sort of style. I've got to say that the more outlandish nature of Draenor has just allowed the art team to go absolutely feckin' bonkers with the whole thing. Honestly, it's that feeling of going absolutely mad. That's what I really loved about some of the zones in Outland. And then of course I think Northrend was great because while yes, they did have a bit of a theme to them, it was all very well realized, whereas Pandaria was just like, oh yeah, we're going for the Asia stuff, so let's look up some pictures of China and Google and away we go. And it was just a bit boring to me. Plus, green forest. A, green forest, B, green forest, C, swamps. Yeah, it was a bit dull. Anyway, so the good news is none of those dull problems actually happen in Warlords, and the zones are all feckin' beautiful. Number 3, excellent use of scenario tech. So, Blizzard have finally found a good use for scenarios. Hint, it wasn't whatever the hell you did during Mists of feckin' Pandaria. Pandaria, even. Guess what? Scenarios at level 90 for getting gear and stuff sucked. They were so boring. Okay, it was maybe a bit more fun in patch 5.2 when we were getting all of our story stuff, and I think that they noticed that, and they've decided that what they're going to do is use scenarios for questing. They've actually, I think, publicly admitted that as well, and I don't believe that scenarios are going to play too major a role in the Warlords of Draenor endgame. Instead, they're going to be using them while you're leveling. So in the past, they were not able to show some of the really epic moments in a manner that befitted their cool scale, but now they can. The defense of Karabor is massive, it's full of mobs, so is Velen's Vision, the attack in Shatrath City, and a few other of the really cool scenarios that go on. And there are some really memorable moments in this expansion's questing, and the use of the scenarios just makes them all the better. But here's another great thing. So, my critique of the patch 5.2 stuff was that when you did a scenario, you had to talk to Jaina, click on a button and queue for it, wait for the queue, which was of course very quick, and then get teleported in through a loading screen. That's not the case in Warlords. These are basically completely seamless in many cases. You don't have to queue for anything. In fact, bar the regular quest window, there's really no menus involved. The main drawbacks of this system, or at least what was there for this system, have been completely mitigated, and the thing just feels really, really good. Number 2, Garrison Buffs. So yep, every zone has a Garrison buff with it, and these are actually really, really damn cool. So in Shadowmoon Valley, you get a whole bunch of troops from your garrison, and in all the other zones you actually get a choice between two different things. So for an example, I could get a bunch of gladiators or a mech if I was in Gorgrond. And the most crazy OP one's actually the artillery in Talador. It's got 3 charges, and each charge recharges every 3 minutes. And wow, I said charges a lot there, but you know what? This thing is bloody insane. It does 180k damage, maybe if it gets 1 crit. And it's crazy. It just you take 10 mobs, you gather them together, you use your cannon, and boom, they all fall over. It's lovely. So the great thing about these buffs is they really shake up the flow, and you know what, since every zone's got a different garrison buff, it means that things are always kept really varied. It's also nice having a choice, and in some cases, the choice that you make between the buffs, i.e. the choice of what building you put inside your garrison outpost, will actually alter the quests. So if you were going through on multiple characters and alts and stuff, you could actually choose to go with different buffs, and that might mean some different quests. So that's really nice. For an example, getting the sparring arena in Gorgrond sent me to the barren desert area, whereas the lumber mill sent me into a lush swampland. Of course, the problem here is that you want to go with the lumber mill so you get the giant combat mech, but it's boring because you go in the lush forest. Whereas you get to kill shit with Rexar if you get the gladiators, even though the gladiators are kind of boring. So, you know what, Gorgrond's really mediocre. I was a bit sad about that. Though every other zone has been absolutely insanely amazing, so I suppose we'll let that one slide. And coming in at number 1, we have the story of Warlords of Draenor. So this expansion has got by far the best storytelling in World of Warcraft. Plot lines are not really massive in scope, but the nice thing about that is that they are really easy to follow, and the actual themes that are going on are really core to Warcraft. Rather than running around the place helping farmers kill vermin, you are nearly always doing something that feels important, or at least something that actually involves fighting real enemies. Basically, there's a giant war going on, and guess what? You're right in the feckin' middle of it, and they rarely break that pace. Your main foes are the Iron Horde and the Shadow Council, both really interesting factions with a whole bunch going on, and the nice thing about these factions is that they are pretty easy to understand. You know, they're not going off any preachy crap like the Shah or anything like that. Nope, these are bad guys, they want to feckin' kill you, so what are you going to do? You're going to chop their bloody heads off and throw them right back at them. And that feels great from a story perspective. What do people think of when they see Warcraft, when they see the art of the orcs, or they see the art of, I don't know, Varian Rin or something? They just think, yeah, this game is about being a badass who kills things. And the story is woven around that idea. You can totally, tell the inspiration that's going on from the original, RTSs and stuff. This is about a war, and it really places you in the middle of that, and that is a really good thing. Now, there is, of course, a decent amount of interesting stuff going on with the story, and that's really important. It's also, as I said earlier, backed up by really solid characters. All this stuff should keep people really engaged and interested in what's going on, so even if the quests aren't particularly interesting, at least there's a cool story to experience. And you know what, if you're not too much into the story, well, one of the good things about this is it never really gets in the way, actually, and it's very easy to absorb the story, or at least absorb the main points of the story, by running about the place and doing your quests normally. You don't have to be someone who reads the quest text to get what's going on, and that really is important, and it's great. Now, there are also a few smaller quest chains in most zones that are separate from the whole story. Now, what's great about these is that Blizzard used them to tell small little self-contained stories that are really satisfying. I really enjoyed the stuff that was going on in this place called Elador. No spoilers or anything like that, but I just thought it was a really nice example of this in action. So, yep. Always good. And then another thing actually is that, I have talked about war a lot in terms of the story, but the quests themselves actually involve lots of warlike stuff. You're constantly going around destroying siege weapons, cutting down soldiers, and in short, you know what? You're just tearing shit up and having a great time. And the story is woven around that. It's really important, and just hurrah. Good one, Blizzard. You've done well. Plus, the story also sets up the raids and the dungeons and things like that in a really, really good manner. So there you have it. They are my top 10 reasons why I think the Warlords of Draenor questing is really, really fantastic, and honestly is just a complete cut above the rest. I'm really loving it, and you know what, I hope that when the expansion comes out, you guys do as well. I'm sure many of you have noticed that I've actually been decently critical of a whole bunch of things lately with Warcraft, well, with WoD, but what I will say is that the questing and the leveling is one of the things that I think Blizzard have absolutely nailed. They've totally done that, and another great thing that they've nailed is, say, dungeons, and not in terms of quantity, but certainly in terms of quality. Anyway, that's about it for me. Just leave your opinions and chungus or whatever in the comments for this video. That'll be lovely. You can like it, you can favorite it, you can dislike it, you can throw it at your parents or something. I don't even know. Do whatever the hell you want with this video. I'm not telling you what to do, apart from subscribe. You should do that. Anyway, that's it for me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.